10 days, 3 different probes, and 1 planet. Hello and welcome to this WION special with me, Alison Lagrange. Now, where we track an exciting interplanetary race, the race to Mars. As we speak, NASA's Mars 2020 mission is inching closer to the red planet. In the wee hours of Friday morning, this cutting-edge Perseverance rover will descend to the Martian surface. But America is not alone. 2 probes have beat them to the red planet, the UAE's Hope and China's Tianwen-1. In years to come, when we look back upon this time, it could rank as one of the defining periods in space exploration. Now, after 7 months of hurtling through space, NASA's Mars 2020 mission is all set for its most intense and challenging phase, landing its state-of-the-art rover on Mars. It won't be easy. The Martian surface is a notorious probe killer. It has already claimed a number of rovers, right from the time of the Cold War. Mars 2020 is by far the most advanced mission to the red planet. It was launched in July of last year using a special launch window that helped conserve fuel. The first part of the mission has become more or less a routine for NASA. This is when the spacecraft carrying the rover enters the Martian atmosphere. The entry happens at lightning speed, almost 20,000 kilometers per hour. If everything goes to plan, the rover should land within the next 7 minutes. But there are a million things that could go wrong in between. Lodging the vehicle in Martian orbit is key, and going by the latest update from NASA, Mars 2020 is on track.
I can tell you that Perseverance is operating perfectly right now, that all systems are go for landing. Last Friday night, we actually sent a command to the spacecraft. We call it the Do EDL command, Do Entry, Descent, and Landing. It makes it sound simple. It's not simple, but it enters the spacecraft into the timeline where it starts to do the entry, descent, and landing activities.
Step 2 is what many call 7 minutes of terror. Here's how it will unfold. At about 130 kilometers altitude, the vehicle will careen into the atmosphere. Now, this is where things start heating up, quite literally. In a matter of 80 seconds, the heat shield will be blasted with temperatures of 1,300 degrees Celsius. The shield is designed to withstand this intense part of atmospheric entry. Plus, the rover will not be exposed to the heat directly. It will be tucked away in the aeroshell. The technology is so advanced that the rover will effectively be in room temperature.
Any of these missions, the period from hitting the atmosphere to getting to the surface has been characterized, depending on the mission, as either the 6 minutes of terror or the 7 minutes of terror. And that's the time that it takes to go from 12,000 miles per hour to 0. It is a daunting task that requires several different technologies to make it work.
During this descent, the vehicle may encounter air pockets. Now, this is when the thrusters come in. They fire whenever needed to keep the lander steady. Once the lander slows down to 1,600 kilometers per hour, the parachute opens. And this isn't any ordinary parachute. It's 21 meters wide and designed to slow down supersonic speed. Perseverance is using a new technology to deploy the chute. It's called range trigger. Now, the system will decide the precise moment to open the chute. It depends on where the lander is flying and how close it is to the landing site. 20 seconds after the chute is deployed, the lander will detach the heat shield, and this will be the rover's first exposure to the Martian atmosphere. From here on, the rover is on its own. It is equipped with another state-of-the-art piece of technology called the terrain relative navigation. It is basically a special camera that identifies features on the surface, features that the lander can then avoid to ensure a safe landing. As it comes closer to the Martian surface, the challenges are even more daunting. For instance, after losing the parachute, the lander must bank to the right. If not, the falling chute will engulf it. With 12 seconds to go for landing, Perseverance will unleash its most tricky maneuver, the sky crane. The rover locks its legs and wheels into a landing position and touches the ground at a little less than 1.2 kilometers from the surface. This is how scientists describe the final procedure.
Folks look at the sky crane landing system and think, is this crazy? Well, the answer is no. It's a product of careful, reasoned engineering thought, because basically it allows you to land only the mass that you want and not land the whole carrier vehicle, which is a lot less difficult. So it's similar to what's done on Earth, where helicopters lower payloads to the surface.
If successful, Perseverance will be the 5th rover on Mars, and by far the most advanced. It is almost the size of a golf cart and fitted with dozens of cameras, mics, drills and lasers. Even if the landing is a success, it'll be a couple of minutes before NASA can confirm it. All this action will start unfolding at around 8:48 p.m. GMT. That's around 2:20 a.m. Indian time on Friday. NASA is projecting a touchdown just 7 minutes later, but remember, those are the 7 minutes of pure terror.
Experimental mini helicopter weighing 1.8 kilos that's set to attempt the first ever.
Now, adding to that terror is the landing site chosen by NASA. Perseverance will land at Jezero crater. Now, this is an unexplored part of Mars, one that might be fraught with dangers. But this is NASA's choice over 60 other potential spots. Now, some of them far safer. What explains NASA's decision to land here? And what does Perseverance hope to find in these treacherous depths? Our next report tells you more.
Ask any aviator and they will tell you that sticking the landing is the most difficult part of flying. It's hard enough on Earth, but light years away on the red planet, it's no different from a scientific miracle. NASA's Perseverance rover is the pinnacle of space technology. As it descends to the Martian surface, the rover will zone in on this site, the Jezero crater. It's a treacherous trough, an unexplored expanse of boulders, cliffs and dunes. The perfect definition of a probe killer. So why is NASA landing at such a dangerous spot?
With a goal of seeking the signs of ancient life, we wanted to go to a place where there was very clear evidence of a habitable environment. And that's exactly what Jezero has. Jezero is a crater that's about 45 kilometers in diameter, and it's once had a lake in it that was hundreds of meters deep. And at the place where the canyon carrying the river and the water into the lake, where that actually contacts the lake, there's a delta. This is a place where fine-grained sediment has fallen out to the bottom of the lake. And it is a wonderful place for things to live and a wonderful place for evidence of life to be preserved.
The idea is to understand Mars's past. What was the red planet like a billion years ago? When rivers crisscrossed the rugged terrain, when waves hit the red sandy shores. Conditions that probably aided the growth of tiny organisms. Could there be proof that life once existed there? That's what NASA is hoping to find.
We are seeking the signs of life on Mars, but we are not looking for life that is presently alive on Mars, because presently the surface of Mars is too cold and too dry for any life as we know it to exist. But it wasn't always that way. So prior to about 3.5 billion years ago, the planet was very different. It had flowing water on its surface, which says it was both warmer and wetter than today. So we're looking for life in that time period.
Mars today is a graveyard. Its surface littered with probe missions chewed up by the rocky outlier. The Jezero crater was chosen over 60 potential landing sites. Some of them would have been a safer bet. But for those who covet glory in space, safe has never been the way to play it. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The ultimate aim of exploring Mars is to unlock the key to life on the red planet. We know that the Martian atmosphere does not support human life. There is no oxygen for us to breathe. But you hear people like Elon Musk repeatedly talking about colonizing Mars. Now, to do that, we must be able to create oxygen. The Perseverance rover is carrying in its belly a machine that could possibly hold the answer. It's been dubbed Moxie, a technology that aims to produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere. Here's a report.
Buried deep in the belly of NASA's Perseverance rover is a technology experiment that could have far-reaching implications for future Mars explorers. Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or Moxie, could demonstrate a way future explorers will produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere.
The single biggest individual thing that we would have to take to Mars with a crew of 4, let's say, would be something between 25 and 30 metric tons of oxygen. What for? Well, not as people think, for astronauts to breathe, that's easy. That's the easy part. The main thing you need oxygen for is for the rocket that's going to take them back up from the surface to come back to Earth, for that rocket to breathe, because rocket fuel needs oxygen to burn as well, and it needs a lot of it.
Moxie is about the size of a car battery. It uses electrolysis to electrochemically split apart carbon dioxide molecules and release pure oxygen. The Martian atmosphere is over 95% carbon dioxide. Oxygen makes up just 0.13%, compared with about 21% here on Earth.
Moxie, if you will, is a mechanical tree. If we could put, trees on Mars and put a big dome over them and harness the oxygen, that would be a great way to do this. And it's free essentially. It's solar powered. Trees are solar powered, right? We can't. That's obviously not practical. So the next best thing is to build a mechanical device that does the same thing a tree does, which is to take in CO2, run it through a complicated chemical process, and produce, among other things, oxygen.
Scientists hope to test Moxie several times during Perseverance's mission on the Red Planet, turning it on for a few hours every couple of months to test it under different conditions. The primary goal of the scientists is to test the technology. Moxie itself won't produce enough oxygen to keep a human alive.
It would keep a small dog alive, okay? To keep you and me alive when we're sitting quietly is probably more like 20 grams an hour. So that gives you some relevance. What we will need to make on Mars to successfully prepare for the arrival of a human crew will be more like 2 to 3 kilograms, 2 to 3,000 grams an hour, not 10 grams an hour.
NASA says future oxygen generators to support crewed missions to Mars will have to be about 100 times larger than Moxie, and probably arrive over a year before humans do, in order to produce the required amount of oxygen. NASA hopes to send the first humans to Mars in the mid-2030s. And Perseverance, which reaches Mars on February 18th, will lay the groundwork for future human exploration of the Red Planet. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moxie is truly an impressive piece of technology, but that's not all Perseverance is carrying. Inside the rover is a helicopter called Ingenuity. It will glide over the Martian surface, melt rocks with lasers, and relay this geological information back to Earth. If everything goes to plan, NASA's Ingenuity will be on full display this week. Quite literally, this is the Ingenuity we are talking about. A cutting-edge helicopter on board NASA's Mars rover. Landing safely is key to its operation. But even then, liftoff is not a guarantee. After all, no one's ever flown a helicopter on Mars.
Helicopter's pretty small, it's about this big, but the blade is enormous. There is a pair of blades about 1 meter across, so 3 feet across, And it's necessary to have that big blade because the atmospheric pressure on Mars is very low. It's about 1% of the atmospheric pressure on Earth.
Ingenuity was built here at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The conditions on Mars are extreme, freezing cold and very low pressure. In these conditions, a very large vacuum chamber is required for liftoff. Another challenge is longevity. The chopper can fly for a couple of minutes. After that, it'll have to land for a recharge. Ingenuity is expected to change space exploration, specifically rover driving. If successful, scientists expect them to replace vehicles as the means of interplanetary exploration. It's a far-fetched dream, but one that NASA is confident of achieving.
Can make the rover driving more efficient if we prove out this technology with Ingenuity. And then the other thing is maybe one day this is the pathfinder for future explorers on Mars that aren't rovers. Maybe there are helicopter explorers that are the next generation, but we need to demonstrate this technology and prove that out.
An orbiter around Mars was revolutionary. A rover was unthinkable. But a helicopter blurs the line between science and science fiction. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
With all the cutting-edge technology and science fiction-level mission objectives, NASA's Mars venture is hogging all the headlines. But America is not the country that will reach Mars this month. In fact, 2 others have already reached Mars and are presently in orbit: the United Arab Emirates and China. Now, both of these countries launched before NASA. The UAE's Hope probe was the first to reach Mars. It was a historic moment for the Arab world. Dubai's ruler admitted that the attempt had a 50% chance of failing. But the ingenuity of Emirati scientists pulled through, and the probe reached Mars on the 9th of February. It will remain in orbit for 687 days. That's how long a year is on Mars. It is expected to create the first complete portrait of the Martian atmosphere, the weather patterns, the 4 seasons, the entire works.
It's an endeavor in developing capabilities and talent within the country. It is something that has never been done before in terms of utilizing a planetary exploration mission to do this. For us, it's significant to validate the process that we took in doing this, because this is what we're going to use in establishing other sectors within the UAE's economy. From a science perspective and for our science community, this is a large leap for them. They today have a mission around another planet, collecting data for the very first time that they're able to utilize and hopefully find new scientific discoveries.
2021 marks 50 years of Emirati independence. It was no coincidence that the probe reached Mars this year. The schedule was planned to commemorate the occasion. The Hope mission cost around $200 million. It was launched from a Japanese space center. Now, the success of the UAE's Hope mission is also an open challenge. It shatters the perception that only world powers can reach for the stars. In the future, you could see many small nations undertake missions to space.
If the UAE can launch a Mars mission, then Switzerland can launch a Mars mission, and New Zealand can launch a Mars mission, and South Korea or Taiwan can launch Mars. They all have resources on that scale. So in a certain sense, it throws down a challenge, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, name it. Okay, why haven't you done a Mars mission?
On the 10th of February, the UAE published the first images beamed across by the Hope probe. The picture shows sunlight just coming across the surface of Mars. The planet's north pole and its largest volcano are clearly visible. Now, just a day after Hope entered orbit, the Chinese probe also arrived on the red planet. The Tianwen-1 is the heaviest Mars probe ever. It is carrying on board 13 scientific instruments, including a deployable camera, a rover, and a lander. The Chinese probe is currently in orbit. It will remain there for 2 months. During this time, the orbiter will collect data on the Martian surface. Now, this is in contrast to NASA's approach. As we told you earlier, NASA will deploy its rover immediately after entering orbit. China is planning a delayed operation. After 2 months, the lander will descend into the atmosphere. From here on, it's a classic landing strategy: slow down the free fall using a parachute and deploy thrusters to ensure a smooth landing. This maneuver is expected in May or June. If successful, China will be the third country to land on Mars after the United States and the erstwhile Soviet Union. With 3 arrivals in space of 10 days, this is arguably the busiest it's ever been on Mars. Combined, these missions will add to our knowledge about the red planet. It will also encourage other countries to follow suit. The names of South Africa, Brazil and South Korea are taken repeatedly when talking about the new space race. It's great news for science, a crowded but exciting race to Mars. February has been a busy month on the red planet. It was a 3-way race between America, China and the UAE to reach Mars, a kind of space race. But the world has seen this before. At the height of the Cold War, Mars was the ultimate prize. Now, both the United States and the Soviet Union wanted to be the first. It's a race that would go on to shape space exploration for years to come.
The Cold War, an ideological tussle that shaped the 20th century, when the Earth was carved up into 2 camps, camps that never waged war but were always on the brink. In the 1960s, the Earth proved too small for the United States and the Soviet Union. They were looking for new avenues to compete. The land and the oceans were already in play, and the only way to go was up. And thus began the space race.
Pictures were transmitted by Mariner 4, and they raised much of the veil of secrecy that shrouds outer space.
The Soviet Union was off the blocks first, though they tripped up almost immediately.
Came to some conclusions. The pictures show that Mars is pocked.
In the 60s, they launched several missions to Mars, all ending in failure.
Is that even the most ancient are still visible.
The most spectacular of which came in 1969. A launch failure aboard the Mars 69 mission. The rocket lifted off, but one engine gave out. The vehicle flew horizontally for 50 meters before exploding into a fireball.
On November 13th, Mariner 9 changed all that.
In the end, it was America who won the race to Mars. The year was 1971.
And the craft did not fly close to the mysterious red planet.
NASA's Mariner 9 spacecraft beat the Soviet Mars 2 mission to reach the red planet. It was the first spacecraft to enter another planet's orbit, a truly historic feat. The Mariner mapped 85% of the Martian surface, sending back over 7,000 images.
Flowing water may have existed sometime in past Martian history.
Through the 1970s, the race continued. It picked up pace, in fact. In 1976, NASA's Viking project became the first to land a vehicle on the Martian surface. The mission involved 2 rockets. The first one landed in July 1976, the second in September. The Soviet Union's attempts continued to garner partial success. In the 70s, it launched 4 missions to Mars. To their credit, the rover landed without breaking apart, but a few seconds later, the connection was lost. While the lander was a partial success, the orbiter made it unscathed. As the 1980s rolled in, America continued its expansion into space. The Soviets tried, but often stumbled due to overambition. They attempted twice to reach Phobos, one of Mars's moons. Both missions were resounding failures. Space projects don't come cheap, and in this decade, the Soviets were learning it the hard way. Pressed for cash and fighting battles on multiple fronts, the Soviet space program lost its edge. It's a story that has many astronomers confused. How did the country that launched the first satellite, the first crewed spaceflight, put the first man in space, lose the space race? In the post-Cold War era, America has dominated space exploration. In 1996, researchers claimed to have found life on Mars, a finding hailed by the then US president.
If this discovery is confirmed, it will surely be one of the most stunning insights into our universe that science has ever uncovered.
In the new century, new powers joined the space race, like the European Space Agency.
Main engine start. 1.
Its 2003 Mars mission carried on board Beagle 2, a British-built rover. It was deployed on Mars, but never heard from again. Almost 12 years later, Beagle 2 re-emerged. It was traced by NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. The history of Mars exploration is inextricably linked to Earth's present, the politics, the economy, even the weather. Venus may be Earth's twin, but its destiny is entangled with Mars. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, it's a wrap for our special show. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to WION for all the updates on NASA's ambitious Mars mission. News and updates continue on the other side.
Eventually, as Mars climate changed, Lake Jezero dried up. Surface water disappeared from the planet.
This is a great place to explore ancient habitats.